She had been.
I was hearing more because you're right.
Okay. So how y'all doing tonight?
Good, good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihiyah b'dvaro.
Amen.
So,
How are you today?
Baruch Hashem, we're meeting after meeting after meeting. So it's oh, don't let's put this out of the way.
Should have given me a calendar. I would have canceled everything for it.
No, I actually just only got scheduled like now, but it was Baruch Hashem. We got 2 new kids in Hebrew school this evening. Scheduled the bar mitzvah.
Taking advantage of that scholarship from your dad, I hope.
Yeah. So 2 kids are 2 scholarships, but they're also scheduling a bar mitzvah for next year. So Baruch Hashem. So that's a new.
A lot on the calendar for next year. A lot of renting of the hall and all that stuff.
I don't think they're going to rent a hall. They're going to do bar mitzvah, like, you know. But yeah, Baruch Hashem. If you want to rent a hall, if you need a place for bar mitzvah, we're available. For a wedding, not to 70th birthday party coming on February 22nd. Yeah, it's I was trying. We're having a bat mitzvah this Wednesday. There's a bat mitzvah next door. Mitzuyan. Then there's was a bat mitzvah. No, not in the morning. No, you're not invited. I'm sorry. I'm not invited either. Don't feel bad. I'm not invited either. What? You almost saw the bagels. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but I don't think they're doing bagels. It's about mitzvahs in the evening. It's dinner time. The bagels. Okay, let's focus, guys. So if you're watching us online, good evening, Stephanie, Erev Tov. Good evening, Gail. Good evening, Miyakel. How are you doing? Good evening, Art. All you guys were waiting so patiently. Okay. So, my friends, tonight's learning is in memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. His neshama should have an elevation in heaven. And we're going to begin because we started a little bit late and have a lot I want to share from the heart tonight. I share from the heart. You were on Shul on Shabbos, right?
I was not.
You were not. They're perfect. Good.
Overslept.
Almost nobody in this room was here on Shul on Shabbos. Bruce was. I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said on Shabbos, and I was going to take a different. This is going to be new stuff. But I'm going to speak from the heart and something which I've been thinking about since Shabbos a lot. And most of you sitting here didn't hear what I said on Shabbos. And for sure, no one watching online heard what I said on Shabbos. Oh, we're being nice. I'm pretending like he remembers what I said in the sermon. We'll pretend. I'm also going to judge. We'll make an assumption that he remembers everything I said. So, my friends, let's start with the joke. The joke that I did not say on Shabbos. So we're already saying something new. There was I read it now with President Trump. It's an old Jewish joke, though. This guy is looking to hire a new accountant. So he has 3 potential, accountants lined up for the interview. The first one, they're all fresh out of school. First one comes in, says, "I have a question for you. What's 5 plus 5?" Says, "Easy. 5 plus 5, 10." Says, "Get out of here. You're not the guy I want." Okay. Second guy comes in. He already saw what happened to the first guy. He was a little too cocky. He answered too fast. So he asks the same question. "I see your credentials. I see your resume. I don't care about that. Tell me, what's 5 plus 5? So he's making the whole thing. He pulls out his calculator and his laptop and starts making calculations and doing like a whole notebook. And after 10 minutes on the calculator, "Sir, the answer to 5 plus 5 is 10. So get out of here, not the guy I want. Third guy comes in, nice Jewish boy, sits down, says, "Tell me, what's 5 plus 5? So young accountant gets up, closes the windows, closes the window shades, closes the door, sits back down, says, "What do you want the answer to be?" So, you're the guy I'm looking for. Glad you like it. So today I'm going to tell you about 3 advisors, 3 different advisors who came to give advice to a wicked man. The wicked man is Pharaoh. Very good guess. Pharaoh, he's the main villain. Not only this week's Torah reading, last week's Torah reading, next week's Torah reading, the week after, for the next few weeks, he's going to be the bad guy. And we all know the story, how he's very, very worried about, Ravita is watching, and Ravita was there in Shul Shabbos. And Pharaoh is very worried about the growth of the Jewish people. The Jews came to Egypt. How many Jews were there? 70 souls. And now a short time has gone by, and the Jews are having lots and lots and lots of babies. And next thing you know, there's millions of Jews. And Pharaoh is very, very worried about this. And he gathers his advisors together. He says, "Hava nischak malay. Come, let us deal wisely with these Jews. We need to figure out a plan how to deal with them. lest they join, if there'll ever be a war, and our enemies will decide to come and make a war against us, they're going to join with our enemies, and it's not going to be good. We need to devise a smart plan how to deal with the Jewish problem. And so Pharaoh will be the first of many throughout history that would struggle with the Jewish question, so to say, trying to find a way to deal with this terrible issue. So that's what the verse says. Let's deal wisely with him. Who are the men that he asks to help him deal wisely? So in here, we have a very, very interesting statement in the Talmud. The Gemara is in Sota, page 11a. And if you're watching on my personal, I didn't even open it on my Dropbox. 1 second. I'm going to open up the Talmud. If you're watching at home and you have a Talmud, you go get a Talmud, a tractate Sota, page 11 on the first side. And it's talking about the Gemara that is going through many of the different details of Moshe being thrown in the Nile River, etc., etc. And then the Talmud makes the following statement. And it tells us, who were the three advisors that Pharaoh asked for advice? Rabbi Chia bar Abba says in the name of Rabbi Simai that three noteworthy people were consulted by Pharaoh in that council, where Pharaoh questioned what should be done with the Jewish people. They were Bilam and Job and Yisro. Okay, let's stop for a second. You know who these three people are? They're all like, well, okay, Bilam you heard of. Bilam is the sorcerer that is hired by the king of Moab to curse the Jewish people on their journey through the desert 40 years after they left Egypt before they get to the land of Israel. Meaning 40 years after the Exodus, he's a very famous, after 40 years after the Exodus, he's a very well-known, very famous, very expensive consultant, an expensive prophet who was hired by the king to curse the Jewish people. So he's definitely a man of renown and of respect who was hired to curse the Jews. Now, Job, you heard of Job? You heard of him? You heard of him? Robert, Bruce, you heard of Job? Who is Job? He's a very, very famous person. I'll go through his life story in a few minutes, who suffered a lot. One of the most famous theological books and theological places in the Torah is the book of Job that has many very, very deep theological questions about why bad things happen to good people and suffering. I'm going to say his whole story in 5 minutes. He suffered a lot. According to this statement in the Talmud, Job lived in the times of the exodus of the Jewish people. Now, I will tell you that there's other opinions in the Talmud that he lived earlier in the times of Avram. Maybe he lived later in the times of Achashverosh. Some say he lived for over 1,000 years. He lived through many periods. There is one opinion in the Talmud that Job didn't actually live. The whole book of Job is a metaphor of prophecies and of theological teachings, but it's not a true story. And that is actually the opinion of the Rambam, of Maimonides, who writes that Job did not actually live. It's a metaphor. But most other commentaries do not accept that opinion. And as I think one of the rabbis explained on the Rambam, when do we say that a book or a name of a person is a metaphor? So when the Torah only tells you a name and nothing more than the name. So just said Bruce lived in this time, okay, so then we can say maybe it was a metaphor. But when it gives you his name and his father's name and the city where he lived, it gives you a whole biological history of his lineage, and it gives you a geographical location of his town, of his residence. That's not a metaphor. That's already that's a story, you know. And the book of Job tells us about his family, his father, his city. He lived in the city of Uz, etc. So the standard understanding is that the story of Job is a real story that's written down because of the lessons and the messages and faith and trust that we can learn from that story. Anyway, let's go back to the story in the Talmud. We have the three advisors. Oh, and the third one, Yisro. Who's Yisro? Yisro is the man. Shavuot Tov Joe and Shavuot Tov Maria and everyone that's watching up from north, Michael, Andrea, and Ravit. Yisro is the man that will soon be the father-in-law of Moses, right? He's the one that will soon be the father-in-law of Moses. There's also very interesting stories how he had a sword, a stick star that's the story, you know, the story of the sword of Arthur. It's plagiarized from the stick that Yisro got, they took from Pharaoh's house that Moshe took out. I wasn't going to say this, but it's a fascinating story. If I have time, we'll come back to it later. Anyway, so these three men, Bilam, Yisro, and Job, are sitting in the palace of the king. And the king wants their advice. He wants feedback, what to do about the Jewish problem. The fact that there's too many Jews, millions of Jews living in the land of Egypt. So what advice do they give? So Bilam, who advised Pharaoh to kill all sons born to the Jewish people, was punished by being killed. Bilam gave the advice, kill them. They're mass producing, throw them in the Nile. And what happens to Bilam? Later on in the story of Midian, there's going to be a war. Bilam gave the advice to curse the Jewish people. After the curses didn't work, he gave the advice to seduce the Jews with the Midianite girls. And when it came to get his pay, they had waged war against Midian, and they kill the Jewish warriors, kill Bilam. So he gave the advice to kill the Jews, and what's his end? He himself is killed by the Jews. Job, who was silent and neither advised nor protested, was punished by suffering. And Yisro, who ran away as a sign of protest, merited that some of his children's children sat in the Sanhedrin in the chamber of hewn stone. That's where the Sanhedrin, the greatest court of the Jewish people, sat. As it is stated, in the families of the scribes who dwelt at Yavez and maybe the Hebrew here, at Yabetz and Tirasim, Shemasim, Shuchasim. They are the Kinim, who came from the house of the father of Beis Rechev. And we know that this family of the Kini is the Chosid Moshe, the father-in-law of Moses. Don't worry about the names. Point is, a lot of names. It's okay. I'm one of those people, like when my mother-in-law starts saying names, her mother's a Hechter, she married my brain just like zones out. I get lost immediately. Some people are good at names. That's not my... The point is, we have three advisors. Bilam gives advice to kill the Jewish people, and what happens to him? God says, at the end of the day, the plan is he goes to try and hurt the Jewish people. He gets killed by the Jewish people. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Yisro. Yisro says, you can't kill the Jewish people. They're good people. What do they do wrong? They're good, hardworking, they're benefits of the economy, they're going to help the land of Egypt. They have no bad intentions. And when he saw that his advice was not being accepted, he had no choice but to run away from the land of Egypt. In fact, we know that Yisro was considered an outcast and an excommunicated priest. He was a person that had fallen from grace. He wasn't a nobody. Yisro had been a very famous, illustrious, important, dignified member of society who had fallen from grace. When did he fall from grace? Well, this is the beginning of that story. When he had to leave his father, he had to leave the land of Egypt, and because his advice to defend the Jewish people, his advice to defend the Jewish people was not accepted. And as a reward for giving good advice, or at least moral advice, I don't know if it was good advice because it didn't work, but at least giving moral, ethical advice, what was his reward? That his great-grandkids would be the ones, members of the Sanhedrin, the great court of the Jewish people, to sit in the temple, in the chamber of hewn stone, to give judgment and advice to the Jewish people. But what we're going to talk about tonight is that third guy, the guy in the middle, the one who kind of asked the countess, tell me, what do you want 5 + 5 to be? You tell me what you want the answer to be. And this man is Job in English, Eov in Hebrew. And he will be tonight's biblical character. To me in the Bible tonight, after that very short introduction, is going to be about this man whose name is not actually in our Torah reading, but in some ways allowed the entire story to take place, and the man that stayed silent when he should have spoken up. That's what we're going to talk about. So let's understand first what he did, why he was punished when he was punished. Then I'm going to tell you his life story a little bit without getting into the theological part. And then I want to really hit it home and address the very, very important life lessons for us and the contrast between Yisro and another person living at the same time in the same place as him. Okay? So let me first explain to you, why was Yisro punished by suffering? What did he do wrong? I mean, I understand he should have spoken up and he should have done the right thing. But all that Yisro did was play diplomatically safe. He was a diplomat. He was a politician. He worked his way into power. I have to tell you that he's considered a righteous man. According to the way we understand Yisro in Iyov in Jewish literature, he was a righteous person. Actually, Tanakh says he was a God-fearing. If I would have time, I would have put this into the source. That was a little rush. The beginning of Tanakh, in the beginning of the book of Job, it calls him a righteous person. He was a God-fearing man, a righteous person who was ethical, who was loyal. He was not sly and sleazy. He was not a people-pleasing politician who just said to you whatever you wanted to hear. He understood that Pharaoh didn't want to hear the truth. Not everyone that asks for advice is actually looking for advice, right? Very often, they're only really asking for validation and for confirmation of what they want to hear. And Yisro didn't get that hint. Yisro said the truth, and what happened? He had to run away. Iyov is a little smarter. He's a little more, a reading of the situation. And so Yisro says, Iyov says, I'm not going to make the same mistake as my friend over here, Yisro, and give advice that's not going to be listened to. I'm going to keep quiet. I'll stay in the palace. I'll be able to have an influence later on. I'm not going to give up my position of influence to stand, on the moral ground of defending the Jewish people. I'm not advocating for their destruction. I'm not siding with Bilam saying drown them and kill them. I'm just not stopping Pharaoh from going forward with what he wants to do. And nevertheless, he's punished with a terrible, terrible punishment. You know what happens to Iyov, to Job? So the book of Job in Tanakh tells us that, again, there's different opinions exactly when he lived, but it's clear to all that he was blessed with enormous wealth. That's what the book says. I'm going to go through this part a little quickly. He was blessed with enormous wealth, and then in one single day, all of his children die. All of his children were killed in one day. He loses many of his servants and his livestock. All of his animals are captured and stolen. And literally in one day, servant after servant comes with one bad news, after more bad news, after more bad news, until he's a man left completely penniless, destitute. Everything he owns is destroyed. All of his children are killed. And how does he respond? This is a God-fearing man. The book says he's God-fearing. How does he respond? At first, Job reacts with clarity and with faith. And he says, I came out of my mother's womb naked, and I will return to my mother's womb naked. Meaning I was born, when you were born, what did you have when you were born? Nothing. You were just, no offense to you, but I'm saying, we were born naked. We were just crying we had nothing. And when we die, how do we die? Naked, same way. We don't take anything with us to the next world. So with complete equanimity and with complete faith in Hashem, instead of becoming depressed and helpless and says, I came with nothing, I'll leave with nothing. No harm done. His faith is whole. And in fact, there he says the famous words that we say at every funeral, Hashem nasan, v'Hashem lakach, Yehishem Hashem mevorach me'ata v'yad olam, which in English means God gives, or God gave rather, in past, God gave, God takes. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever. And that's one of the lines we say at a funeral. We end the beautiful Tziduk Hadin with this line from Job. God gives, God takes. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever. So he reacts at first with tremendous faith. And in fact, as the verse tells us, that Job did not sin or speak senselessly against God. However, the Satan, the prosecuting angel, had been given permission by God to challenge him even more. Test him further. And so now, not only did he suffer with the terrible losses of his family and of his business and of his wealth and of his, his servants, etc., he became extremely ill with severe boils all over his body, a very painful kind of suffering where his body was in tremendous physical pain. And now, how does he react now? So the Torah tells us, or the Tanakh tells us, that he would not sin with his lips, says the Gemara, but in his heart, he began to lose faith. He didn't say it, he wouldn't verbalize it, but in his heart, why am I suffering? What did I do wrong to deserve this kind of pain. And then his wife comes to argue with him. His wife says to him, curse God and die. Curse God. Look at how you're suffering. You're a good man and you're suffering unjustly. Curse God and let him kill you and be done with your suffering. And he says to his wife, will we accept the good from God and not accept the bad from God? And he stays strong externally. But then his friends come. There's many chapters of his friends come to console him. And they start giving all those regular, those good, well-meaning idiots that come like by yeshiva homes. God had a reason. It must have been his time. At least he's in a better place. They start justifying and rationalizing and explaining and all the explanations that people feel the need to give. And they say, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're suffering, And they tell him, maybe happy. There's a verse that says, happy is a man whom God rebukes. It's a sign of love. And by now, Job loses patience with all of his friends. He says, I would rather die than suffer the suffering I'm suffering. And he wishes death upon himself from the suffering that he has. And finally, and there's many, many theological verses in this whole dialogue between Job and his friends. Fascinating. Maybe one day we should do a class on Job. It's not in the, all the different verses, the back and the forth. It's a lot of very deep statements, both ways, deep questions. The end of the story is, when we finish on the questions, the end of the story is God admonishes Eov, and he says to him, you're questioning my ways. Where were you when I founded the earth? If you know my ways, who gives you the right to question me? Speak up if you have any arguments on what I've done. And when Job recognizes that he made a mistake by judging God, he asks for forgiveness. He prays for his friends that had spoken bad against God, and he is healed. He becomes very, very wealthy, double as wealthy as he was before, and he lives for many, many, many years to a very old age, which is why some say he was still alive in times of Achashverosh and Queen Esther, which is like 800 years later, so a long, long time. Okay, question.
Before he became wealthy again, when he was poor and he was suffering and he lost his children, was this as a result of him being silent?
Oh, yes. So that's exactly what I'm saying now. So the Talmud is saying, this is not my interpretation, it's black and white in the actual Talmud. The Talmud says, as a punishment, as a result, you have the text in front of you, right? As a result of Job not speaking up at the time when he should have spoken up, therefore, what happened? What does the verse say? He was punished by suffering. That's what the verse says. God punished him. And he was punished to suffer because he should have spoken up in defense of the Jewish people, but he didn't speak up when he should have. He remained silent. So my first question is, what's the sin? What's the sin of being silent? Is it a sin to be silent? Is it a sin to not speak up when someone out of your control is doing something you can't stop? It's not like if Job would have spoken up, Pharaoh would have said, you know what, I think you're right. I'm glad I decided to listen to logic instead of my own prejudice and hate against the Jewish people. I'm glad I listened to you. I'm not going to do anything to the Jewish people. That wasn't going to happen. And nowhere does it say that if Job would have spoken up, Pharaoh would have changed his mind. Job made a probably accurate assessment that his speaking up would have no practical change in the preconceived decision that Pharaoh already had before he came to the discussion table. And yet, it seems as if he's being punished for not speaking up. Is that a sin to not speak up? And if it is a sin to not speak up, is it such a terrible sin that you deserve the punishment of such intense suffering? Not only to lose all your wealth and all your cattle and all your businesses and all your investments, but to not only lose all your children and your family and everyone you love, but to physically suffer boils and a painful ailment where he's in such terrible agony and pain? And so the answer we take from this, and the very powerful me in the Bible lesson that we're going to take from this story, and I'm going to tell you soon why this is so relevant to what's going on this week in the year 2026, in the beginning of January 2026, and whoever watches this in the future, why this is so important to know, is that yes, when you have an opportunity to speak up for truth and you don't speak up, that is a sin. There is a verse in the Torah, and I didn't make the source sheet, have a chance to put it in, that says, Lo samod al dam reyacha. Do not stand idly by the blood of your friend. And that's referring to, well, you can save him. If you see someone being hurt, you are not allowed to say, it's not my business. In America, you are. By American law, you are not obligated in any way to involve yourself in saving someone else whose life is in danger. If you want to, there are laws to protect you called Good Samaritan laws, etc. But that's only because in America, we live in such a litigious society where if you try to help someone, let's say someone's in a car accident, you try helping them, pulling them out of the car. And when you pull them out of the car, you actually dislocate their neck and now they're paralyzed. So they might sue you for trying to help pull them out of the car and the car accident and actually, make it right. Correct. You're saving their lives. You're pulling them out of the cars on fire because you yanked them. So in America, we have to create protections if you do that. But by Jewish law, it's a mitzvah to help save someone's life. And if you don't, you violate a sin.
It's the same thing in the United States because you have the Good Sam law.
Good Samaritan law, I just said, but that Good Samaritan law is not an obligation. You're not listening.
It's not an obligation.
So that's what I'm making a distinction, a very important distinction. In Judaism, it's an obligation. In Judaism, if you see someone's life in danger and you don't do everything and anything you can to save them, you have violated a sin.
Correct.
In America, that's not the case. In America, if you watch, better yet, if you're a real American, you don't watch. What do? Take a video. If you're a real American, you take a video. And instead of saving the person, you're posting your next Instagram reel of this person drowning and whatever. You have done nothing wrong. There's no crime.
No, there are what's called the grave indifference laws. That if you see somebody drowning and you don't either get somebody else to help or you don't help, you could be charged.
That's not true. There's a true story. There's a true story that happened in Sanford, Florida, right near Orlando. And I've shown this video to my bar mitzvah students many times of a person that has some kind of mental, whatever. Well, I don't know exactly his condition. He left to get into a fight with his mother. He walked behind the development they lived. There was a big pond. And he walked into the pond and he started drowning. As he's drowning, there was a group of kids, teenagers. You know the story. I don't know the end of the story. And they're videoing him. They're like, oh, you idiot. What? And he's calling out for help. You can see on the video, and I've shown my kids this video. He's drowning and he's calling for help and he's thrashing in the water. And they're laughing at him. Oh, I'm not going to get my ball. We're getting to save you. They didn't, not only did they not go into the water, it was a man-made lake, and they could have, there was a whole bunch of them. Not only did not one person try saving this guy who walked in, he wasn't even deep in the water. They're not only are they mocking him and making fun of him as he's drowning, and you watch him go underwater and drown, don't even call 911. They're on their phones videoing and recording, and no one even called 911 to report someone come send help, someone's drowning. They watched the person drown. They then posted the video on their Facebook and never called the police. Meantime, this mother is frantic. She can't find her kid. I guess they started a search, I don't know, the day, that night, the next day, whatever. And someone saw on social media this video, and they sent divers into the pond, and they found his body, like a few days later. And the police chief of Sanford said, I looked for anything I could to these kids are, I don't remember the exact language, despicable human beings, something like that. And there's no crime whatsoever I can charge them with. They didn't obstruct justice. They didn't, hide the crime. They didn't, there's no legal obligation to report a crime if you see it happening. There's no legal obligation to help. Legally, they did nothing wrong. So said the police chief of Sanford. I'm getting a little distracted over here. but Google after class. So go look. Just Google person drowning in Sanford, Florida, and you'll see the video and you'll see the police chief.
We should find names of all those people.
Yeah.
And we should make sure that those colleges shouldn't allow them.
I have a feeling those kids, I'm going to be careful how I say it nicely and politically correctly, but I have a feeling they're not applying to colleges. They didn't get the vibe from the way they're talking that they're applying to
The only time there's really an obligation is if there's a relationship between you and the person actually that is in the water drowning.
So if you have a relationship, then you have to.
If you have a relationship.
And that's a legal obligation.
That's a legal obligation.
Okay, well, here we're talking about strangers. Here we're talking about people that are not your flesh and blood. And the point is, and I got a little distracted with this, but the point is, by Judaism, you have a moral obligation to stand up and do what you can. There's another mitzvah in the Torah called you should surely rebuke your friend. You see someone doing something wrong, if they're your friend and they'll listen and there's a sense of relationship, you have to sometimes have the uncomfortable conversation and share with them how they need to improve, what they're doing wrong. Sometimes. You have to know how to do it right. You have to be a friend. You can't rebuke them unless you're a friend, and it has to be in private. And it's the same version about not standing on the blood. You can't embarrass them. You have to know how to do right. The point is that by Jewish values, by the Jewish value system, standing quietly and silently observing the unfair destruction or punishment or suffering of innocent people and not doing anything when you are in a position of influence and you're able to do something, but you choose for your own self-preservation, for your own justifications, to not get involved and to not speak up when you should speak up, and when you have the ability to speak up, then you carry a certain liability. And therefore, what was Job's punishment? The punishment for not speaking up when he should have spoken up, because he assumed, what's it going to help to speak up anyway? Pharaoh already made up his mind. He was forced to suffer. What happens when you're suffering? When you're suffering, you cry out in pain. Why is it going to help? Will crying help alleviate any of the actual pain of the boils? No, it won't help. And nevertheless, you cry because you can't not cry. When your body's in pain and your body is hurting, you can't control yourself. You feel the need, it hurts, so you cry. And that is exactly how we should respond. When we see an innocent person suffering, we need to feel the need to cry, even if we logically think it won't help. And even if we're right, and even if it won't help. Not always this crying out is for a purpose. Sometimes it's just a natural reaction to seeing injustice. Because he didn't speak up, he suffered measure for measure. Mida keneged mida, measure for measure. God always punishes us. I said this before. What's the punishment? Why is the punishment for being quiet? Suffering. Because when you're suffering, you learn that I cry even though it won't help.
Taking the children, I mean, that's not.
Well, I'm not saying the whole story only because of that. There's many other ethical lessons we need to learn from the book of Job. But there is a very important message for us. And when we see someone suffering, we need to speak up for them. We need to defend them. We need to be there for them. Let me give you a contrast. Ready for a contrast? Contrast is another person who lived at the exact same time as Job, who was at the same time that Pharaoh was making this decree to kill all the babies and throw them in the Nile. You know who this person was? It was a she. Her name, not Miriam. I mean, Miriam also stood up and did the right thing, but someone that could have just stayed on the sidelines and watched without getting involved. Very good. Miriam was a sister. She had no choice. There was a princess of the royal palace, a daughter of King Pharaoh. Her name was Batia, or Bitia, depending how you pronounce different versions. And Batia she decided, I had enough of the idolatry in my father's house. She went down to the Nile to bathe. The rabbi tells she went to go do the conversion to wash herself off of the idolatry of her father's house. And as she goes to the river to bathe, what does she see floating in the river? A basket. And in the basket, you all know the story, no spoiler alert here, is a little baby crying, and she takes the baby, and what does she say when she takes the baby? She sees he's circumcised. And she says, this boy is a Jewish boy. So she knows that she's holding a Jewish baby in her hands. The children that have been decreed by her father, a dictator too, to throw into the Nile River and kill. And instead of killing the child that her father had decreed should be killed, what happens? Her compassion was aroused for this child, and she tries feeding the baby. Moshe refuses to nurse from any of the Egyptian maids that are with Batia. Meaning it wasn't even like a secret. There were maids standing around her. She didn't care. And so she then Miriam comes out from the hiding of the bushes. She was hiding in the reeds. And she says, I'll go get you a Jewish midwife. which is again risking her life even more because now everyone will know about it. And she says, go get a Jewish midwife. And she goes to call her mother, Yocheved, who comes, and she gives the baby to Yocheved to raise and then to return back to the palace. Meaning, the baby had protection. If Egyptian officers came around the Jewish quarters of Goshen, where Yocheved lived, they saw a little baby there, there were no other babies in town. They were all being killed. Came in and said, sorry, this is a baby of Batya. Can't touch. Do you understand what act of sacrifice that is? Just change the word daughter of Pharaoh to the daughter of Hitler, Yimach Shemai. Or change the daughter of Joseph Stalin. Or daughter of Ahmadinejad. Or of, any other Ayatollah. I don't know, right? Imagine if Hitler's daughter would find a Jewish baby being smuggled out of the ghetto with black hair and blue eyes, not blue eyes, gray eyes, green eyes, I don't know. Jewish kid, looked like a Jewish kid, not blonde hair. And she would say, I'm taking this baby home, I'm going to raise this child like my own. Can you imagine that? She'd be killed in an instant. Dictators don't mind killing their own kids. When you become a narcissist on that level and that kind of insecurity and paranoia, history is full of crazy people that kill their own daughters and for much smaller, made-up threats. And yet, Batya didn't say, what's it going to help to save one child? How many Jewish kids are being drowned every single day? How many Jewish kids are being slaughtered alive for my father Pharaoh to bathe in the warm blood of Jewish children? That's what Pharaoh was doing. He had a skin condition, and his doctors told him to bathe in the warm blood of Jewish kids. He was literally slaughtering Jewish children, and when the blood was warm, bathing in that blood. You have to be a real sociopath to bathe, to get into the blood of someone that's warm. You need to be on a serious level of sickness. Yeah, like off the charts depraved, literally off the charts. I can't even imagine. You have to be really really off the charts ill to bathe in the warm blood of other people. And Pharaoh is doing that. And yet his daughter says, I'm not intimidated. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to back down, even though it's only one single Jewish child that I'm going to be saving out of hundreds of thousands of kids that are being killed. Because this kid came into my hands, I will not abandon this child. That's the opposite of what Yisro did. The opposite. Instead of saying, it's not my problem, don't get involved, stay in your lane, but that's the American way of doing things. Stay in your lane, mind your own business, don't get involved, no one asked you. That's the American value system. It's not your problem. Don't get involved where you don't belong. Instead, Batya does the exact opposite. Batya said, this baby came before me. I am going to risk my life to pay a Jewish woman to feed this baby under my protection and then bring this baby into the palace to be raised in the home of my sociopathic, ruthless, disgusting, heartless monster of a father called Pharaoh who bathes in the blood of children. And I'm going to bring this baby home with me and under my protection. And she does it. And God rewards her. God rewards her with one of the most amazing gifts that God could give. You want to know how God rewards Batya? You want to know how God rewards Batya for risking her life to stand up for one innocent Jewish child? Talmud says it in Megillah. I couldn't find the exact source. I found it in the Medrash quicker. But I think it's, when I Googled the source for it, it's in Talmud also. But it's in the Medrash. We know that Moshe had 10 names. He was called Yeser and Yered and Chever and Yukusil and Avigdor and Avisocho and Avizanayach. What name did his mother give him? Moses. No. He wasn't called Moses at birth. Let me stop sharing. I'm going to say it in my own words. Moses was not called Moses at birth. In the Bible, when does he get called Moses? Only after he comes back to the palace, as Batya called him Moshe. Until then, if you look in the Torah, and I don't have it here in the text in front of me, if you open the Chumash, and you look in the entire story, from when he's born till he's hidden in the basket. He's floating on the Nile, and he won't drink. Every single time the Torah refers to him as the Yalad, the boy, or the Nile, the child, is crying. Look, you'll see, like, I don't know, 5 times, 10 times, the Torah refers to him by an unnamed child is crying. Child was born, she hid the child for 3 months, then she couldn't hide the child anymore, she put the child in the basket, no name. You think the Jewish mother didn't give her son a name? You know the joke about David who comes home from his first day of kindergarten. So his mother said, my Taya, my Ziskai, she's like so scared to take him to school. She's like, my honey cake, my sweetie pie, my juice, whatever. Hope you have a good day. He comes, she takes him to the bus, like she can't stop hugging him, kissing him by the door of the classroom. Have a good day, my dear. I love you, my darling. Comes home, my beautiful, my sunshine, my gorgeous. What did you learn in school today? So I learned that my name is David. Of course, Yocheved gave him a Jewish name. She gave him the name he was born. And for 3 months that he was home, and she sang him lullabies, she had a name for him. What was his name? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda ben Rabbi Eloi said his name was Tuvia. Why Tuvia? In the verse it says that when he was born, Vatera Isai, she saw him kitoiv hu, that he was good. He was born in a house filled with light. He was born circumcised. She saw that he was good. So from here we learn that his biological name, his name at birth, that his mother gave him was Tuvia. Tuvia. Tov Yudke. He was good. He was good. And other names, Avigdor. Avigdor was one of his names. Avisochel was one of his names. Yared was one of his names. So why does the Torah never call him Tuvia? Why does the Torah never tell you when he was born that his mother called him Tuvia? We don't find that he's called that once. Torah even tell you, just as he's the boy, who refuses to tell you his name until after he's raised by his mother for 2 years or 3 years or 9 years. Different opinions how many years she kept him until he was old enough to be returned back to Batya. We don't know his name. Only when he comes back to the palace, now she calls him Moshe. She pulled him out from the water. She pulled him out from the water. Now she said he's good. Why do we have his name before? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says God Almighty, the Holy One, blessed be He. Says as follows, the Holy One, blessed be He, says to Moses, Bechayecha, by your life, as long as you live, from all the names that you were called, I will call you only by the name that Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh, called you. She called his name Moses, and therefore when God called Moshe at the burning bush, how does he call him? Moses. God had a choice to call Moshe Tuvia, to call him Avigdor, call him Avisochel, call him the name his mother gave him. And God said, because Batya risked her life to save my child, therefore I will forever call Moshe only and exclusively by the Egyptian name given to him by this Egyptian woman, because she was willing to call him her child and take responsibility for him like he was her child. And because she took responsibility to save his life, as a reward for that, when God calls Moses, in the whole Torah, the only name that we know of him, the name that God himself uses, is not the name that his Jewish mother gave, but the name that his Egyptian savior, who risked her life to save him, that's the name that God himself uses. See the difference? She could have made a very simple logical argument. And she could have said, what's it going to help? What's the objective? What's the point? I can't stop my father. And she couldn't. But she still refused to remain silent when she had the opportunity to do something. She did it. And when Eov, Job, had the opportunity to do something, he made the calculation to not do it. He made the calculation to play it smart, to play it safe, to be careful, to be, to decide when to speak, when not to speak. And because of that, he was punished. Yeah.
Here's the million-dollar question. If you had said to Pharaoh, I understand both sides. I agree with Jethro that you shouldn't kill the Jews. But I know you're gonna listen to Bilam because you're not gonna
Yeah.
listen to me. But I wanted to let you know that
I'm on that-
I stand, so I'm gonna be silent. Without
You're-
would he have went far enough?
I don't know what he could. All I know is he didn't speak up. That's all we know. I don't know what he did actually say. I don't know if he sat there, didn't speak at all. When it says he was silent, most likely it doesn't mean literally he was silent the whole time. Right? He probably spoke. He probably expressed words. But if you're a smart politician, and Eeyov was a smart man, you can speak a lot of words without saying anything, or you can value, say, play it smart. I have to think about, there's many ways of speaking without saying anything. And there's many ways of speaking in an agreement, or allowing your words to be interpreted however you want, the person wants to hear. They'll hear my words that they want to hear. I thought he was literally silent. I don't think that's what it means literally.
So I guess the question is, to what extent do you speak up knowing that you
Okay, good questions. So I want to tell you one more thing before I get to the takeaway lesson, which I think is very important. Very, very important. Really important. I've been thinking about this since Shabbos. Really, I'm thinking about it. I don't know the answer, but I'll think about it. But I want to say one more thing. Just because I have time and I want to say it because I'm feeling it. We have 3 stories. Most of you were in the shul on Shabbos. We have 3 stories about Moses. Before Moses is hired by God, so to say, chosen by God to be the one to defend and to save the Jewish people from the hands of Pharaoh. The Torah tells us 3 different stories to show us the greatness. Who is Moshe? What's the first story we have in the Bible that Moshe does something? Yeah, so the story of the sheep running away and Moshe chasing after the sheep is a very beautiful story, but it's not actually written in the text of the Torah. It's a medrash, and it's a beautiful medrash, it's a beautiful lesson. But the Torah only tells us things that are relevant for every single Jew to know as a lesson in life. Any other detail is nice and beautiful, but is not a life lesson, is not written in the actual text of the Torah. So the Torah chooses to tell you a story. It's a story that's a life lesson for us. What's the first story? Don't go away after this. I want to share with you what I think is a lesson for us today. But what's the first story of the life of Moshe Rabbeinu? After he's brought back to the palace by Batya, it says he went out to the field to go and see his brothers. Right? And what does he see? An Egyptian taskmaster is fighting against a Jew. It's a whole story, but I don't have time for now. This Egyptian taskmaster had raped the wife of this Jewish slave. Now he saw that he knew he wanted to kill him. And when Moshe sees an innocent Jew being attacked by a non-Jewish taskmaster, what does Moshe do? He risks his life to kill the Egyptian taskmaster. Hides his body in the sand. He thinks he's safe. The next day, Moshe goes out again a second time to empathize, to feel for his brothers in slavery. And this time, what does he see? Not a Jew being beaten by a non-Jewish taskmaster, but he sees a Jew being beaten by another Jew. 2 Jews are fighting, and one Jew has his hand raised in the air to slap the other. Says, "Wicked one, why would you raise your hand to slap your friend?" And now he defends a Jew for another Jew. And they say, "Oh, matter is known." And they go and they snitch on him, and he has no choice. He runs away. And for 40 years, he runs away. He ends up becoming a king in the city of Cush. Many fascinating stories happen to Moshe in between when he runs away from Egypt till he comes to the well where he meets the daughter of Yisro. He meets Zipporah. But all those stories are fascinating. They're not in the Torah. They're in the Medrash, because not lessons for us. The next story that the Torah tells us, which could have been the Medrash, is that that Moshe runs away and he comes to the well in Midian. Happens to be 40 years in between, but that's the next story. The next verses comes to Midian, he goes to the well, and what does he see at the well? Zipporah and her sisters come to draw water. Remember, her father Yisro was an outcast of society, and so the other male shepherds are terrorizing Zipporah and her sisters and chasing them away. And now Moshe sees how non-Jewish girls are being attacked by non-Jewish shepherds. And what does Moshe do? What does he do? He stands up to save them from the hands of the Midianite shepherds. He feeds, he waters the sheep of Yisro's daughters. And Zipporah comes home early. Normally, she'd wait till all the shepherds left so she could get water. Today, she comes home early. So her father asks, "How did you come home so early today?" She said, "There was an Egyptian man standing by the well. He saved us. He helped us. We were able to get our water for our sheep right away." She says, why didn't you invite him home for dinner? Maybe he'll marry you. So they go, they find it, they bring him home, and the rest is, as they say, they lived happily ever after, and Zipporah and Moshe get married, and then the movie ends. No, that doesn't end there at all, actually, but saying 3 stories. Think about think about the arc over here. The first story, Moshe is defending a Jew from a non-Jew. Most Jews, and not all Jews, but many Jews, if they see a Jew being attacked by a non-Jew, what will they do? They'll defend the Jew. Most Jews. Again, not all, but most Jews. Will see a Jew being attacked by a non-Jew, gotta defend the Jews. But what about when you see a Jew being attacked by a Jew? Now, don't get involved. Don't get involved with politics. Don't air our dirty laundry. Don't, between you two, why am I, stay in your lane. That's the American value, the American ethos. Stay in your lane, mind your own business, don't get involved. Just take a picture and post it on Facebook anonymously. Don't, that's the American way. Moshe doesn't only defend the Jew from a non-Jewish anti-Semite, from the Egyptian taskmaster. Moshe saves a Jew from another Jew. But that's still not the ultimate greatness of Moshe. The Torah tells us yet a third story to help you truly appreciate why did God choose, of anyone in the world, why did God choose Moshe to be the one who would be the redeemer of the Jewish people and the one to teach Torah to humanity? Because when Moshe was standing at the well, he's a stranger, he's an immigrant, he has nothing to do there. He's not a Midianite, he doesn't know anybody, he just came there. He literally ran away from Egypt. He's fleeing his country. And he sees an innocent girl being attacked by the shepherd, by the male shepherds, taking advantage of this young girl, lady, I don't know how old she was. And if you remember, back then, ladies were like second-class citizens. Men had the right to terrorize and abuse women. That was how society worked back then. And yet, instead of being part of the abuse or just sitting quietly, pretend like you're reading a book, pretend like the sky is very interesting, instead, Moshe stands up to defend a girl who he didn't know who she was. All he knew was that she was being abused and bullied and terrorized by the other shepherds there. And he stood up to defend her. And that story is written in the black and white text of the Bible because that story is a lesson for us to know that when we see even a non-Jew being attacked by another non-Jew, if it's clear who's right and who's wrong, I mean, this underdog doesn't always mean that you're innocent. But when we know that someone's innocent being attacked, we need to stand up and not remain silent. So why do I share this? Why am I thinking about this since Shabbos? Because if you look at the news today, if you open Fox News, CNN, Georgia, we opened up the news. I checked now before, like a few hours ago when I was home. You may happen to also notice that there was protests going on in Iran. You may happen to have noticed. And according to the American media that I looked at a few hours ago, the numbers are over 500 people killed, which is Baba Mises. I've seen unverified report of over 10,000 people killed in Iran so far. Do you know that the internet's been down? It's over 100 hours now. So as of sometime this afternoon was 100-hour mark of zero internet. And even the Starlink satellites that Elon Musk put there, they're jamming it and they're confiscating anyone they see with satellites in their homes are being arrested. Tens of thousands arrested. They're already doing trials. There's already people that are sentenced to death. There's already pictures coming out. People that have already been tried and sentenced starting January 14th, which is in 2 days. They're starting executions on protesters that were, not those that were shot, protesting with live fire. And you see videos. I'm on WhatsApp groups where I'm getting videos. Don't share them. They're graphic. I've seen videos outside of morgues and hospitals with lines and lines and lines of body bags all over the floor. Lines of them. Rows. People walking around in shock and disbelief and crying. Horrific. And yet, what's the world doing? They're focused on the Globes, whatever award happened yesterday. There was some dinner or something. The Golden Globe. I only know because I wanted to wear the world talking about. And what did she wear? And what did he say? And she did this. Mazel tov. Or we're worried about that Trump is fighting with Powell now and going to sue him because he didn't raise inflation. That's what the world is worried about. And the fact that there's no internet. We don't even know the numbers. There's literally thousands upon thousands of innocent Iranians being murdered by their own government right now, fighting for freedom and liberty from oppression and from dictatorship. No one cares.
And
Everyone. So part of it, what bothers me, is that in Israel, in Gaza, Israel's accused we're not letting reporters into Gaza uncensored, unaccompanied. Sorry. Meantime, everyone in Gaza with their brand new iPhone 7s and iPhone 8s, there's a genocide and there's starvation. But they all have brand new iPhones taking videos of their staged. They found the kid with some kind of medical disorder, and it's a Rahmanas, but they found the kid has some kind of medical disease, and their body looks like a hello skeleton. The mother is well fed. The kid's next to the baby is well fed, but this one kid is malnourished, and the whole world is screaming and shouting as if we're blocking information. In the meantime, Iran shut down the internet over 100 hours ago. That was this afternoon. So now it's 105 hours. And it's not even headlines. It's not even headlines. And I looked at a few different media. It's not even headlines, which is an avla, which is it's a tragedy, and it's wrong. And so really, why are we getting involved? Jews have this tendency, if it's not us, okay, let them kill each other. We're safe. But here there's a very, very clear right side and wrong side. It's very, very clear to anyone that knows anything about the history of Iran and knows what's going on. You have the Ayatollahs and the regime that is an evil, evil regime. And you have innocent people that are risking their lives. And there was a doctor that got out describing the bravery of these young kids that are going out to the streets, and they know that they might be killed. They know they might be killed. They're using live fire on the protesters. They shut off the internet. The Iranian government told the forces that there's going to be no accountability, and they put out things. Whoever goes onto the streets is going to be, even bystanders are not. If you're near a protest, you're automatically considered guilty. And they're shooting. They're shooting. Live fire. So, 1 second. So we have a moral obligation. We learn from Moshe. Moshe saw a non-Jewish woman being attacked by a non-Jewish shepherd or shepherds. He didn't do what Eov did. He didn't say, what's it going to help for me to make noise? I'm living in America. I'm not going to I can't change what happens in Iran. I can't do anything. What am I going to do? And yet, when you see something wrong, you can't be quiet. When you're in pain, when you see an opportunity for freedom to prevail, and you can't, and you don't do anything, that's when you fall into the trap of being silent to the sin. Now, someone that's watching, thank you, Carmen. Someone's watching this class of Chabad.org just posted Free Palestine. So Free Palestine. So Free Palestine. Of course, they hear what they want to hear. And so they think that Palestine's the underdog. So you got to save the oppressed Palestinians from the Jewish oppressors. So I asked this guy, Raul, why he doesn't care about freeing Iran. That's just the only question. If you care about human rights, I'm asking you, Raul, a question. If you care about human rights, if you care about human life, you care about, there's 10,000 people that have probably been killed already, and maybe the numbers are higher now in Iran. In 2 years in Gaza, 70,000 people were killed according to Gaza's numbers, if you can trust their numbers, of which more than half were terrorists, by their own admission. By their own admission. They don't differentiate between terrorists and innocent people. And that's the whole death toll of the entire Gaza, including people that are old, people who have died of cancer, people who have died of 70,000. In fact, there's more people living in Gaza today than there were in October 6, 2023. Meaning the population, I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you Google the population of Gaza 2.5 years ago, before October 7th, and today, there's actually more people living in Gaza than then, which means that we are like the worst genocidal people in the world. And for Israel, that's a very, very advanced country with the most advanced technology and the most advanced weapons in the world, including America, with all due respect to America. We have the absolute best technology and best weapons. If we wanted to do a genocide in Gaza, it would take us about 2 hours. It would all be done. All be done. It would be time for the world to blink. We never once turned off the internet in Gaza. We never once stopped any iPhone 7s from reporting in their starvation. It's over 100 hours with no internet from Iran. And Raul, if you care about human people, and you care about life, and you care about innocent people suffering, so why don't you post a flag of Iran and say, free Iran, free the innocent people? There's 90 million people living in Iran. There's 2 million, I don't know, I think 2 million in Gaza. 90 million people are suffering in Iran right now, but Raul doesn't care about them. So that's part of what bothers me, because it's an open, clear, anti-Semitic agenda against the Jews, because that's all they care about. But we as Jews can't only say that people that say free Palestine are anti-Semitic haters that just hate Jews and don't really care about human life. Have proof in the pudding. 90 million people are living in danger right now and around that internet, and no one says anything, including this guy right now. But that doesn't change the fact that we as Jews need to learn not from Eov, who was the advisor who remained silent, but we need to learn from Batya, who was willing to risk her life. We need to learn from Moshe, who learned from Batya. He grew up in that example, in that environment. That was his stepmother. To recognize when injustice is being done and innocent people are suffering, even if they're not Jews, to stand up for innocents, not for underdogs, for the innocent people, and to do our part, and at least, even if we can't change anything, not giving in to the sin of silence and of complicity. I had a few stories I'm going to share in the Holocaust. There's so many famous stories of people that stood up. Irina Sandler, Sagi Hara, but we don't have time. It's already 9:10. You get the point. We're living in a time where the world is silent. That doesn't justify us being silent. And so in whatever way we can, we need to stand up for innocence and justice and for the true people, for the 90 million innocent people that are suffering, but the activists of the universe couldn't care less about. Good night, my friends. Yes, one last thing. Saul, you're a tzaddik. Thank you, Saul. I'm glad you're here. Tomorrow night, thank you very, very much. Tomorrow night, we are starting our next JLI series called, I'm calling it From the Ages to the Sages. JLI is calling it Captivating Cases of Rabbinic Response, but it's going to be a fascinating history of different questions asked by different Jewish people in all different situations, in all different circumstances, in all different times and places across the globe. And if you would like to join, you can go to mychabadcenter.org/JLI. Again, mychabadcenter.org/JLI. And you can still sign up for tomorrow. It'll be on Zoom. And I'll send you a PDF of the first lesson. Then we'll get you a book if you want to join us. The scholarships are available if needed. And that's tomorrow night. We'll be right here, 7:30 p.m. Bezrat Hashem. Same time. Next week I might do Monday night also. I'm not going to be Tuesday. We'll see. But anyway, you're welcome to join tomorrow night. You can try out the class if you're watching and you want to see it online. You can send me an email to rabbi@mychabadcenter.org. Sending a private message on Facebook probably is not a good idea. I don't really look at Facebook Messenger. So send an email, rabbi@mychabadcenter.org, or go to mychabadcenter.org/JLI. And you can join us tomorrow night, 7:30, for a brand new course. Thank you, Saul, for reminding me. Okay, thank you, Andrew, for joining us. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Carmen. Have a blessed week. Laila Tov, Stephanie, Dana, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Jessica, you are right. Logic and reasoning does not apply to the Free Palestine crowd. You are correct. How did you figure that out? As always, very informative. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Mindy. You, all those who are watching. And thank you, Joe. And thank you, Jessica. And we'll have to leave some comments soon. And thank you, Maria and Joe and everyone else. Laila Tov. God bless you all, even those that have their heads in the wrong places, to learn to stand up for truth and for innocent people, those that are suffering for no reason, besides for dictatorships.